thriving ecosystem in Pune of startups and people wanting to, do stuff on their own and so on. Obviously, there's a dark side as well in terms of they're also, when they get into something, they're also very hard to shake out. They don't have the change itch like I do as much. So, but that helps in growing a business, which is very good.
Okay, and absolutely the last question. You also involved into a lot of incubation activity even earlier, even today. I think it might help the audience to know what is it typically that you focus upon, or are there any specific domains that you really actively support?
So no, I don't go by domain. I think all the startups that I have been involved in had two ingredients. The first ingredient was that I matched the frequency of the founders. They were very like me. I saw something of myself in them, and I think that worked very well. The second was that they were not caught in, hey, I want to do this and this only. They were flexible, so that flexibility was very interesting. One of the startups that actually didn't work well, this was in the Bay Area, that I got involved in, we invested in a little bit as well, was because a friend of mine was part of that startup, was a co-founder, and we had very good vibes, and we've always got along well together. But also because it was in a very unique space, and it was a huge differentiator, and he had the right team, so it was very exciting for me. So I think those are the two things that I look for. I think it's all personal. It's not that I do these things just because it's an investment vehicle. It's really a more of can I really contribute and can I really support that activity?
Okay, so I think it's been a fairly interesting conversation. I'd like to leave the...
my bar is very high.
We leave it to the audience to give their feedback. Anyway, so I think very interesting conversation. Throw it open to the floor for any question that you have for Monish.
So one question, a lot of people talk about services as a boring business to start, and a lot of people these days are more excited about a product startup. Now obviously the product startups are more riskier than a service. Like you said, it's a lifestyle business. So if somebody had to start today, would you recommend going for a services company, build it for 2 years, build a lifestyle and then start funds on your own and a cash flow? Or would you say just go with your passion? Just because you've done it, you started with a lifestyle business and now you're doing products.
Right.
Is that the right way to do some sanity into the...
So I think that's a great question. I think it is up to an individual or a group of founders that you're thinking about what is the right thing to do. Services help you get started and sustain much more easily than products, obviously, because the barrier to kind of growth is much less. Having said that, getting the valuation and scaling a services business is much more difficult than product. If you get the product story right, the scale comes naturally, right? And obviously I'm assuming execution and sales and all the good things that I talked about. So it is really, individual circumstance. So when I started a services company, when we decided to focus on services, the first day we didn't know what we were going to do, right? That's how, it's kind of jumping into the water and then learning to swim. But services was where we said, hey, these are our limitations. I don't think we have the aptitude or the capability to actually, within ourselves, to actually build a product company. That is one of the things I meant by, kind of that personality trait in terms of, hey, do you have that confidence and can you actually commit to doing something? Services was much more tangible and something that we knew we could do well, right? So, if you think about Icertis, I would have never started a product company even today, just because I wouldn't be able to do it myself. I know my limitations, right? But with Samir in the mix, it's a completely different story, right? Because I have the sales guy that I need. I have the ecosystem and the network and all of the things that are needed to actually make a company successful from a product perspective. So I think that is where you really are looking at. Do you have the right ingredients, and can you introspect enough to determine that you have the right ingredients? That probably drives you. But nothing to beat passion. If you're passionate, there's no, it's like falling in love, right? It's blind. So then you don't care. But then, if you're passionate enough, I think nothing is impossible, right?
How do you sell a startup to a sales guy?
How do you sell a startup to a sales guy to join you? Yeah, that's a great, absolutely great question. Right? First of all, you have to believe in your vision. And I've been in 3 conversations like that, which I thought were, me selling for a change to a sales guy to join us. First of all, you have to believe. Right? I have to believe in what I'm saying. Obviously, that kind of doesn't take any brains to figure out. I think the second thing, what is the sales guy looking at? He's not worried about salary, right? He's worried about his commissions, right? And if you can tell him that, hey, first year I don't know if you will even make the commissions, very hard, but I'm compensating you with equity. And the second year is how your commissions are going to look like. I think that is the only way, a really good sales guy will actually get excited, right? Because the sales guy is only, the good sales guy, he's been doing that for years. He's been working only for these commissions, right? And we have had, even today we have salespeople who have sub 100,000 salaries, but make 300, 4,000, 100,000 of commissions. That's a big difference. Salary is maybe 25% of revenue, of income, right? So when he or she has to see that, and once that commitment comes in, once the guy says, hey, yes, I believe in you and I'm willing to take that risk and forego that 1 year commission for stock, I think you already have great selling skills, right? I think that's the only way to really get someone on board. There's a second one, which is again a no-brainer. Get him as a co-founder. Right?
That's even better.
That's even better.
So, whatever I've read and heard, the stories I've heard about startups, the first couple of years are really critical, right? So, you hear people, all the founders and entrepreneurs, yourself included, talk a lot about what are the things you should definitely do to make it successful.
Right.
But what are some of the things you should definitely not do? One of them you said that don't go into deal just for the sake of the deal.
Right.
It should
Walk away.
Walk away when it's right. But what are some of the things you should avoid doing?
I think the only thing I can think of which you should definitely avoid doing is not fall into a rut. I think that is where the first 2 years, depending on what kind of startup it is, self-funded, VC funded and so on and so forth, very different actually. If you look at a VC funded startup, it's completely different from a self-funded startup, as you can imagine. The first 2 years are critical only because that's where you're trying to find your footing, right? Which means you have to step on 5 stones at the same time and figure out what is the right stone for you to bet on for the next few years. And I think most people drown there because they cannot keep that jugglery. And I think that jugglery, again, I'm keeping all those exceptions out. You always have exceptions. Deep technology, if someone comes up with the next great thing in Kinect or virtual reality, they're going to be successful. Or bioinformatics or whatever, new gene revolution or cold fusion, obviously they're going to be successful. But for the average guy, it's the ability to juggle those 5 things and make sure that you. So one is to not fall in a rut and be blind to what is happening around you. I think that is something you cannot do, and I think everything else falls out of that. All the things that you don't want to do as a startup all fall out of that. You have to be agile. You have to be able to change direction. BrainLogic was a great example. When we started, we were server management. In the middle, 5 years in the business, we found, hey, this was not going to help us grow. We moved our focus completely to compliance. Everything changed. One fine morning, all of the company, 110 of us were looking at a very different direction. So that ability to kind of, we didn't say, hey, this is our passion and we'll continue to do it. Right? So passion makes a great start to a startup. Doesn't usually make a great end to the startup. Right? Passion can only take you to a particular level. beyond that, I don't think it is just passion.